Welcome to a TBN special, Israel Under Fire. I'm Erick Stakelbeck, coming to you from New York City. It is day 12 of Israel's war against the terror group Hamas in Gaza, a war that Israel did not choose, but a war that Israel must win as it vows to decisively crush Hamas once and for all as any sort of threat to the world's one and only Jewish state. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll be talking to a former UN ambassador, Israeli UN ambassador, plus the granddaughter of one of the hostages taken, dragged into Gaza by Hamas in that October 7th onslaught, that invasion of southern Israel. But up first, we need to set the record straight, folks, on some very vital details that emerged yesterday, October 17th, out of Gaza. Now, there was a hospital in Gaza City that apparently was bombed. Some 500 people reportedly killed in this hospital. But Mark Twain, the famous American author, once said that a lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. And that's exactly what we have seen over the past 24 hours as the world, including much of the world mainstream media, has piled on Israel and accused Israel of intentionally striking and targeting this hospital in Gaza City and again, killing 500 civilians. Well, that's not what happened, folks, and then some. That's an understatement. What really happened? Well, you can hear right now, in the words of Hamas terrorist, what really happened at this hospital. Let's go straight to the audio.
بقول لك أول مرة بنشوف الصاروخ زي هيك والشظايا هذه فبقول لك تبع الجهاد الصواريخ الجهاد الإسلامي هاي.
إيه؟
فهم بقولوا تعاون الجهاد الإسلامي.
إنه من عندنا هذا؟
شكله من عندنا
مين اللي بيقول هيك؟
بيحكوا إن الشظايا تبعت الصاروخ إنه الشظايا محلية مش زي شظايا
إيش بتقول؟ سبحان الله من عندنا ما لقاش غيرين بجرسلي.
عاد هذول تلاقيهم من المقبرة الورا دي بفلك محط فيهم. ايش اصدر بتلاقيهم طالعين من المقبرة اللي ورا المستشفى المعمداني دي اللي هو فسه ونزل عندهم.
هو في مقبرة وراه؟
المعمداني يقول لك عند الساحة بالضبط.
هي وين لما تدخل على الساحة؟
أول ما تدخل على الساحة تدخلش على البلد عيدك اليمين في مستشفى المعمداني.
عرفتها.
So, folks, you heard it straight from the jihadi's mouth. That is Hamas admitting that their allies, another Iranian-backed terror group in Gaza known as Palestinian Islamic Jihad, misfired the rocket that struck the hospital and killed 500 civilians. There you have it right there. That is the smoking gun. And yet, we have seen over the past 24 hours plus massive protests and demonstrations in the Arab world against Israel and continued accusations that Israel was behind the bombing of this hospital in Gaza City. Not only do we have the Hamas audio there, again, laying out what really happened, but the Israel Defense Forces have shared video and still photos showing clearly that a misfired Islamic Jihad rocket was the cause of the carnage at this hospital. And folks, this should really be no surprise. There is a track record here of Hamas rockets misfiring within the Gaza Strip, including in this current engagement. Again, we're on day 12. It began on October 7th when Hamas invaded and slaughtered at least 1,300 Israeli civilians, probably more. But during this conflict over the past 12 days, Hamas has already, according to the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, misfired at least 450 rockets, which never traveled into Israel to reach its intended targets, but they did fall, those misfired rockets, inside of Gaza, where they killed, you guessed it, Palestinian civilians. Hamas and Islamic Jihad, their fellow Palestinian civilians. Now, President Biden was in Israel today meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He came as a show of solidarity, and he talked about this hospital strike and the real culprit behind it. Take a look.
I was deeply saddened and outraged by the explosion at the hospital in Gaza yesterday. And based on what I've seen, it appears as though it was done by the other team, not you.
the other team and then some. Kind of strange wording there. It's not an intramural soccer match. It's a war, and Hamas are terrorists. But nonetheless, at least he gets it straight that Israel was not behind the bombing of this hospital. But again, folks, key point here, the world, or much of it, including much of the mainstream media, has not seemed to care about the facts in this case. But we're joined now by someone who is, when it comes to facts, he has made the case and stated those facts again and again for the world to hear. Israel's former ambassador to the United Nations. Talk about a tough job. Our good friend Danny Danon joins us now from Israel. Ambassador Danon, always good to see you. I wish it was under better circumstances, but let's start with this madness, really, that's unfolded around this hospital bombing, which again, Islamic Jihad, the Iran-backed terror group in Gaza, was responsible for. In your role as Israel's former top diplomat at the UN, you had to fight in the court of world opinion, public opinion, again and again for Israel. What are your thoughts right now on what you've seen thus far in the reaction to this hospital bombing and the finger being pointed unjustly at Israel?
Thank you for having me, Eric. So first of all, we have to be very clear that every civilian that will die in this war in Gaza is the responsibility of Hamas, period. It was an unprovoked attack against Israel, and we have seen such atrocities only in the Holocaust. So we will not take responsibility for any Palestinian victims. But regarding the incident of last night, it was clear that the rocket came from Islamic Jihad. It was targeting our cities, actually the city of Haifa up north. And because of a malfunction of the rocket, it fell in a hospital yard, and we saw the casualties and the pictures from there. But look at the lies, you know, they spread that lie. And I cannot understand how come until now, 24 hours after, you still have people in the UN, for example, Secretary General Guterres is still blaming Israel. You know, I can understand Rashida Tlaib because she's anti-Semite and anti-Israel, so she doesn't care about the facts. But even countries are still blaming Israel. So we are fighting for truth. It's not easy, but we are determined to go all the way against Hamas. We are determined to fight evil. We are determined to win against those vicious, barbaric animals who acted in such a manner against our babies, women, children. So we will not be deterred by those condemnation.
Yeah, and Rashida Tlaib, of course, the Michigan congresswoman, a member of the so-called squad, which is vehemently anti-Israel. Ambassador, as Israel is fighting, obviously, the war on the ground in Gaza, perhaps even other fronts, which we'll talk about in a minute, in your experience, as Israel's top diplomat at the anti-Israel hotbed known as the United Nations, how did you approach it when you saw these lies being bandied about the world's one and only Jewish state, especially at a time like now when, as you just mentioned, this was the worst slaughter of the Jewish people since the Holocaust? How do you approach the nations of the world? It should be obvious that Israel is on the side of good, but how do you approach the nations of the world and make the case for Israel?
Well, I think we have to speak about moral clarity. So we cannot win with the numbers at the UN, but you need to bring on your side the democracies and to show them the facts on the ground. And that's what I'm doing. Whenever there's an allegation against Israel, I check the facts and I come back to it. And that's exactly what we did with the issue of the hospital. You know, last night I was pushing, my colleagues in the IDF to release a statement sooner than they did.
Yeah.
I think we have a
we're on day 12.
Tel Aviv, but Eric, I'm going to have to apologize.
Sirens.
We have sirens in Tel Aviv right now. So as you speak now,
Ambassador.
we can speak for 30 seconds before I will go to the shelter. But as we speak, millions of Israelis now are running to the shelters, but they are willing to do it. They are willing to be in the shelter, but to allow the military, I'm coming. We allow the military to win the war, and we are determined to win the war. And I want to thank you and the millions of the Christians that support us and pray for us. With God's help, with your prayers, we will prevail. We will win this fight against evil. I'm coming.
Thank you, Ambassador. Take
Thank you,
cover. God bless you. We're praying for you and for all of Israel. Thank you. Good. Be safe. Be safe.
Thank you.
God bless
God
you
bless
too,
you.
Ambassador Danon. Folks, Israel's former UN ambassador, Danny Danon, you saw it here, folks, on live TV. The sirens go off, and when that happens, you have maybe 30 seconds to find a bomb shelter and to take shelter. This is during a live television interview. Ambassador Danon had to take shelter. You just saw it there, folks. That is what Israelis, not only Ambassador Danon, his family, that is what Israelis throughout the land of Israel are dealing with right now. By the way, a quick reminder, just to give you an idea of what Israel is up against. Israel is the size of the state of New Jersey, surrounded on all sides by a ring of fire. Iran-backed, key point there, Iran-backed terror groups armed to the teeth with hundreds of thousands of rockets, missiles, and attack drones. So it should really come as no surprise that Ambassador Danon is sadly taking cover right now. Folks, and that's in Tel Aviv. That's further north from Gaza. I've spent a good chunk of time, and you've seen it here on TBN on the Watchman show many times, a good chunk of time along the Gaza border. These sirens wail, and they are forced to take cover. Picture this. If you're a father, a mother, or a grandfather, or grandmother, picture having to grab your child. You have maybe 15, at most 30 seconds. Grab your child. Say you're just outside in the yard playing, having a picnic, having lunch together. Scoop up your child, your grandchild, run to a bomb shelter with them. And again, you're checking your phone, your watch. How long do I have? 15 seconds, 30 seconds? Incoming in your beautiful community. A disruption to your day is the understatement of the year. But that is what these brave Israeli communities in southern Israel have dealt with time and time again. I've spent a great deal of time in these communities, and let me give you an example, folks, 2 examples. Number one, in Sderot. It's about 2 miles, a little less, from the Israel-Gaza border. It really bore the brunt, by the way, of that Hamas invasion on October 7th. Many in Sderot were slaughtered by Hamas terrorists. But in Sderot, bus stops double as bomb shelters. That's daylight. Could you imagine? You're waiting for the bus, but a siren goes off. You have to run inside of the bus stop, which is also a bomb shelter. I know firsthand, ladies and gentlemen. I had to do it. Not too long ago, I was in Israel, in Sderot, as rockets were falling. Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad were firing rockets at Israel. Our TBN team went down to Sderot. We were near the front lines to cover it for our viewers here for such a time as this. We were filming in Sderot. The sirens went off, and hey, I'm an American who has never been in that kind of situation. My Israeli production crew was seasoned, tried, and tested. All of them served in the Israel Defense Forces. They knew exactly what to do. And when we reached the bomb shelter, thank God, the rockets did not fall in our immediate vicinity, thank God. And again, in that bomb shelter, it was a cross-section of Israeli society, Israelis of all ages, of all political persuasions, I'm sure, together, united, much like you see right now, the people of Israel. Hey, those judicial reform protests, they're pretty much a thing of the past right now. The massive division we saw over the past 10 months or so in Israel. Folks, I have never seen Israeli society so united as they are now. But I'm growing a bit concerned. I will lay it out for you. This is no time to mince words, right? This is a war. This will have global ramifications. I'm getting concerned about the world pressure mounting on Israel. And President Biden so far has said all the right things. And he made a trip, a solidarity trip to Israel, as we showed you earlier, and met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. But when the rubber hits the road, when things get really tough, you really see who your friends are. You may say, wait, what are you talking about? Things are already very tough, and President Biden and his administration have stood solidly behind Israel. Yes, verbally, absolutely, statements, for sure. Hey, 2 U.S. carrier groups also off the coast of Israel right now as a deterrent to Iran and Hezbollah, a deterrent to them potentially opening another front. And Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said yesterday that some 2,000 U.S. troops are on alert for possible deployment in a non-combat role to assist Israel in this war. And the main reason for that would not be as Israel and Hamas go at it toe-to-toe. And Israel, as you're watching right now, at any moment, Israel is poised to invade Gaza and, in the words of Prime Minister Netanyahu, crush Hamas decisively once and for all by air, land, and sea. But the U.S. presence and show of force is not so much for the Hamas arena in Gaza, but again, as I mentioned a minute ago, it is to deter the Iranian regime and Hezbollah. But as things get nasty, and folks, again, keep Israel in your prayers, the people of Israel right now, because things are going to get increasingly nasty, not only on the battlefield as Israel goes in on the ground, but also in the world arena, in the arena of public opinion, as we discussed earlier with the hospital lie and in our conversation with Ambassador Danone. Also pray for the people in Gaza who want no parts of Hamas, women and children who are drawn into this because of Hamas's evil, tyrannical rule of that area. But also bear in mind that a good chunk of the population in Gaza is supportive of Hamas as well. Remember, Hamas won elections back in 2006 to govern Gaza, so a very, very difficult situation. One last thought before we go to Adva Adar, who is the granddaughter of one of the Israeli hostages who are in Gaza right now, dragged there quite literally by Hamas on October 7th. Remember, there are some 200 hostages right now, including several Americans, U.S. citizens, languishing God knows where in Hamas's clutches right now. Again, we'll talk to the granddaughter of one of those hostages, 85 years old, in Hamas's clutches. But a quick thought before we go there. Number one, the Iranian regime continues to threaten to open a second front, in particular to Israel's north. Now, Israel has its hands full, obviously, fighting in the south, in Gaza, against Hamas and Islamic Jihad. But Hezbollah, folks, a quick note, a reminder here, it is Iran's crown jewel, its most lethal and dangerous proxy, poised on Israel's northern border. Its base of operations is in Lebanon. Over the past several days, several flare-ups along that border, Hezbollah firing anti-tank missiles, opening fire at Israeli observation posts. So things are heating up to the north as well. Hezbollah is armed to the teeth with some 150,000 rockets and missiles pointed at every inch of Israel. So we are watching closely for those multiple fronts, for that ring of fire that Iran wields to ignite. We hope it doesn't happen, but if it does, we pray that Israel is ready to take care of business, to put it in simple terms, when it comes to Hezbollah as well. And Hezbollah may also, if it gets involved here, sign its death warrant, just as I believe Hamas did on October 7th. Hey, we mentioned the global uproar against Israel. Let's go right now to some clips. And folks, to preface this, this has been, look, Israel just experienced the worst terror attack in its history. This was Israel's 9/11, Israel's Pearl Harbor. Again, at least 1,300 Israelis, mostly civilians, massacred by Hamas terror. You would think the world would see that, just as after the Holocaust, when the true nature and the magnitude of the Nazis' crimes were exposed, when American GIs liberated the death camps after World War II, the world was shocked and outraged. This time around, some of the world, a good chunk of the world, was shocked and outraged at the mini-Holocaust perpetrated by the modern-day Nazis, Hamas. But a good chunk of the world has actually been cheerleading what Hamas did. Let's look at a clip from that protest in London, pro-Hamas protest.
1, 2, 3, 4. Occupation no more. 5, 6, 7, 8.
Folks, this is London. London, England. This is all unfolding right now. Also New York City, also Chicago, and elsewhere around the world. Well, here's what they're cheerleading. They're cheerleading the wholesale slaughter of the Jewish people and hostage taking. Right now, we are joined by Adva Adar. She is the granddaughter. She's joining us from Israel, the granddaughter of Yafa Adar, who was taken by Hamas captive into Gaza. And Adva, thank you so much for joining us right now. We can't thank you enough during this difficult time, taking your time to be with us here and share your story. And I saw the images of your grandmother being taken away by Hamas on a golf cart into Gaza. Tell us where you're at right now, how your family's doing, and what exactly happened when your grandmother was taken. And she looked, by the way, so peaceful despite the carnage and the madness going on around her.
Yeah. So I would like to start by saying thank you for your important words. It's not something you hear a lot around, and it means a lot. For me, as an Israeli, as my entire family lives in the kibbutz, in the border with Gaza, and hearing you saying all those words against the propaganda that Israelis are against us right now. So thank you very much for this. I live in a moshav called Luzit, which is about an hour from Miroz. Miroz is the kibbutz of my grandmother and the rest of my father's family. And my grandmother was kidnapped from her house last Saturday, 11 days ago.
And we saw the footage there just now, Adva, of your grandmother in a golf cart navigated by these Hamas terrorists. Tell us about your grandmother. Tell us about Yafa, 85 years old. She has lived through all of Israel's wars, you've said previously. Tell us about her and what kind of woman she is.
My grandmother is a very, very special person. And you can see in her eyes, I think, but she's kind and she's very loving, and she's funny. She's young-minded. She likes to, watch football with us, and she has, Facebook page that she likes to comment on everything and sending gifts and WhatsApp messages, and she really likes being in touch with us. And she has 7 great-grandkids who she care a lot, and they love her, and they were really waiting to visit her on the Saturday when this horrible event happened, and they are asking about her every day, asking when are we going to visit Tata Yafa, that's how they call her. So they keep asking, and we keep, we don't know how to explain them that we don't know her condition, and that we don't know how can someone be this cruel to kidnap an 85-year-old woman, and how come that 11 days after and she's still being held captive in Gaza, and my grandmother is ill, and she takes medication in order to survive, and she has no medication with her, of course, and every day without the medication, we don't know if she survives and what's her condition. And every minute that is passing is a minute that we don't know if she will be able to get back home. And, you can see my grandmother in the video, and a lot of people told us that she gives them strength from her look, from the way she looks at the terrorist eyes, and she's telling them that they won't humiliate her, and they won't take her pride, and they won't see her suffering or scared. And that's the kind of special person my grandmother was, and that's the reason we are doing everything that we can in order to bring her back home, because but the way that she's handling the situation gives all of us the strength to fight for her.
Yeah, Adva, we are praying for you, for Yafa. She seems like an amazing woman, and again, the peace, the serenity, the strength on her face when she was enduring what she endured from Hamas. Adva, we can't thank you enough. We'd love for you to come back and give us updates. We're praying that the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, are able to bring your grandmother back home. That's our prayer for you and your family, Adva. Thank you so much for joining us. Hang in there and let us know if you need anything. We will see you again soon, Adva, with hopefully very good news. We're praying every day for it. Take care, Adva. God bless you.
You too. Thank you.
Folks, at a loss for words after that, obviously, in many ways, in talking to Adva, seeing her resilience, her courage, her strength, and of course, Yafa, 85 years old, in the clutches of Hamas right now, all look lost. It may look lost, it may look hopeless, but I am reminded of Genesis 14. The book of Genesis, chapter 14, lays out an ancient hostage rescue. Abraham, he was then still known as Abram, went to save his nephew Lot from the clutches of pagan Canaanite kings. The book of Genesis says that Abraham took 318 well-trained men, and they went and they fought a war to free a hostage, a captive, unjustly taken, his nephew Lot. Well, it was a successful hostage rescue, in many ways miraculous, and you could see God's hand in it. So as we close here, Israel under fire, join me in praying for a Genesis 14 miracle for those hostages in Gaza right now. Again, at least 200 hostages, women, children, the elderly like lovely Yafa, who you just saw and heard about. Let's pray together for a Genesis 14 miracle, and that I come back to you in the coming days here on TBN reporting on the miracles that God Almighty has worked in Gaza in freeing the captives and bringing those hostages home. Remember, his arm is not too short. Nothing is beyond the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Thanks so much for joining us here on Israel Under Fire. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for the entire land of Israel right now. It is needed right now more than ever. Until next time, God bless you. We'll see you again soon. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.